My family rejected me for being a single mom, but I became a millionaire overnight. Now, they're begging to be in my life. The rain pounded against the windows of my beaten-down Honda Civic as I sat in the gas station parking lot, counting the same $10 for the third time, as if the amount might magically increase. My daughter Lily slept in her car seat, her tiny face peaceful despite the storm raging outside, and the one raging inside me. I was 22, a single mom, and completely alone. The $10 in my hand represented everything I had left in the world until my next paycheck, still 3 days away. "Just breathe, Mia," I whispered to myself, wiping away a tear before it could fall. "You've survived worse." But had I? 8 months ago, I'd been a college student with a loving family, a boyfriend who promised forever, and dreams bigger than the sky. Now I was living in a studio apartment with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet, working 2 jobs that barely covered rent, and relying on the kindness of an elderly neighbor for childcare. All because I'd chosen to keep my baby. The gas gauge light had been blinking for 2 days now, but I couldn't spare $1 for fuel. I needed diapers more than I needed to drive. The cheapest pack they sold cost $7. That would leave me with $3 to feed both of us until Friday. Lily stirred in her sleep, her little face scrunching up. I reached back and stroked her cheek, feeling the rush of love that always followed. No matter how hard things got, I never regretted my choice. Not for a second. "We're gonna be okay, sweetie," I said, even though I wasn't sure how. The rain seemed to lighten a bit, so I grabbed my worn purse and dashed inside the gas station, bells jingling as I entered. The fluorescent lights made everything look harsher, including my reflection in the security mirror. Dark circles under my eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Clothes that hung loose on my frame because I'd been skipping meals to make sure Lily had enough formula. I found the cheapest pack of diapers and brought them to the counter, where a middle-aged woman with kind eyes rang me up. "That'll be $7.45 with tax," she said. My heart sank. I hadn't calculated the tax. I only have $7 for the diapers," I admitted, feeling my cheeks burn with shame. The cashier looked at me for a long moment, then discreetly pressed a button on her register. "Look at that, they're on sale today. $6.99 even." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you," I whispered, sliding the bills across the counter. As she bagged the diapers, my eyes wandered to the lottery display next to the register. Bright, colorful tickets promising dreams for just $1 or $2. I'd never bought one before. My father had always called them a tax on people who can't do math. But my father wasn't here. He hadn't been here since the day I told my family I was keeping the baby. "Add one of those, please," I said, pointing to a neon yellow $3 scratcher called Golden Opportunity. The irony wasn't lost on me. The cashier raised an eyebrow but didn't comment as she handed me the ticket and my change, a single penny. I pocketed it, knowing that even a penny might matter someday. As I turned to leave, the door jingled again, and I froze. Walking in was my cousin Derek, the last person I wanted to see. He'd been the first to cut me off when I announced my pregnancy, telling everyone I was flushing my life down the toilet. Well, he drawled, expensive sunglasses perched on his head despite the rainy weather. "If it isn't little Mia." I clutched my purchases tighter and tried to move past him. "Hi, Derek. I'm in a hurry." He stepped into my path, glancing down at the lottery ticket in my hand. "Seriously? You can barely afford diapers, but you're wasting money on scratchers? This is why you're in this mess, you know. Poor choices." My cheeks burned hotter. "I need to get back to my daughter." "Ah yes, the famous daughter. The one that cost you everything." His voice was casual, as if he was discussing the weather and not the complete destruction of my relationship with my entire family. "You know, your parents were at my place for dinner last week. Your mom's doing much better now, by the way. After all the embarrassment you caused them." The pain in my chest was so sharp I could barely breathe. My mother had been diagnosed with high blood pressure the month before I got pregnant. When I refused to fix my mistake, as they called it, my father had blamed me for making her condition worse. That's good to hear," I managed. Derek's eyes traveled over my appearance, taking in my worn clothes and exhausted face. "You look like hell, cuz. But hey, you made your bed." He shrugged, then brushed past me to approach the counter. Some people never learn. I hurried out of the store, tears blurring my vision as I ran through the rain. Back in the car, Lily had woken up and was starting to fuss. I climbed in beside her, my hands shaking as I tried to calm her. "It's okay, baby girl. Mommy's right here." As I rocked her, I caught sight of the lottery ticket I'd bought. A stupid, desperate purchase. Derek was right. This was why I was broke. Poor choices. I crumpled the ticket and shoved it into the side pocket of my old purse, forgotten almost immediately as Lily's cries grew louder. I had more important things to worry about than a wasted $3. Like figuring out how to make a packet of ramen stretch for 2 more days. Like finding a way to pay next month's rent when my second job had just cut my hours. Like wondering if I'd ever stop feeling like I was drowning. I started the car, wincing at the warning lights on the dashboard, and pulled out of the parking lot. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained dark and threatening, much like my future. What I didn't know then was that the crumpled ticket in my purse would change everything. That the next time I saw Derek, our positions would be dramatically reversed. That the family who had thrown me away would soon be begging for a place in my life. But that would come later. For now, I was just a girl with empty pockets and a full heart, trying to make it through another day. I drove home slowly, conserving what little gas I had left, unaware that fortune was already riding shotgun. 3 months after the gas station encounter with Derek, I sat on the floor of my apartment, scrolling through my phone with a lump in my throat. My Instagram feed was filled with pictures from my younger sister Zoe's baby shower, an event I'd learned about only because a mutual friend had mentioned it in passing. "Look at that beautiful cake," commented an aunt under a photo of my mother holding a knife over a 3-tiered confection decorated with tiny blue booties. My finger hovered over the screen. I hadn't been blocked, just not invited. Somehow that hurt more. They had birthday parties, weddings, and baby showers. I whispered to Lily, who was busy stacking plastic cups on the worn carpet beside me. I wasn't invited to a single one. Lily looked up at me with her father's eyes, the same eyes that had widened in panic when I told him I was pregnant, right before he blocked my number and transferred to a college on the opposite coast. She babbled happily, oblivious to the fact that her entire maternal family pretended she didn't exist. I set my phone down and joined her on the floor, forcing a smile. Who needs fancy parties anyway, right? We'll have our own. The truth was, I did miss them. The noise and chaos of family gatherings. My mom's lasagna. My dad's terrible jokes. The way my grandma would slip me $20 even though I was an adult, whispering, "Don't tell your grandfather." I missed belonging somewhere. But I refused to let Lily grow up seeing me beg for scraps of affection from people who had made their feelings clear. I was trash to them now. A cautionary tale. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez next door. "Can you cover my grocery run? I can watch Lily for extra hour." I texted back a quick yes and got up to get ready for my evening shift at the diner. My morning job at the coffee shop barely covered rent, but the dinner rush tips sometimes meant the difference between eating and going hungry. As I changed into my uniform, a polyester dress that smelled perpetually of fryer oil no matter how many times I washed it, my gaze fell on a framed photo of my family from 2 Christmases ago. Everyone matching in red sweaters, arms around each other, smiling. I'd kept it as a reminder of what I'd lost. No. What had been taken from me. The diner was busy when I arrived. The usual Thursday night crowd plus a large party celebrating something in the corner booth. I tied my apron and grabbed my order pad, slipping into the familiar rhythm of taking orders, delivering food, and clearing tables. "Mia. Table 12 needs refills," called Gina, the head waitress, as she rushed past with a tray full of burgers. I grabbed the water pitcher and headed over, then stopped in my tracks. Sitting at table 12 was my entire family, parents, sister, grandparents, and a couple of aunts and uncles. They were laughing, menus open in front of them. My father saw me first. His smile vanished as our eyes met across the room. Then my mother turned, her hand flying to her throat. For one foolish moment, I thought they might have come looking for me, that maybe this was some kind of reconciliation attempt. But then my sister Zoe, her baby bump now visible under her designer maternity top, leaned forward and whispered something. My mother's face hardened, and she raised her hand to signal a different server. I stood frozen, water pitcher dripping condensation onto my shoes, as Gina rushed over to take my place. "You okay?" she asked, noticing my shocked expression. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and retreated to the kitchen. Through the service window, I could see them ordering, chatting, acting as if I wasn't 20 feet away, serving chicken fried steak to strangers for minimum wage plus tips. They stayed for nearly 2 hours. Not once did any of them acknowledge me, though I caught my grandmother watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. When they finally left, I found their table, no tip, just a napkin with my mother's handwriting. "You could have been part of this. You chose differently." I crumpled it in my fist and threw it away. That night, I called in sick to my coffee shop job for the first time ever. I couldn't face another day of smiling at strangers while my heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. Instead, I took Lily to the park, watching her toddle around the playground on chubby legs. "You're getting so big," I told her, catching her at the bottom of the slide. "Soon you'll be talking and telling me all your secrets." She giggled and ran back to climb the steps again. I pulled out my phone and took a video, then hesitated. I hadn't posted anything on social media in months, but suddenly I wanted to. Not to get my family's attention, I was done with that game, but to show that we were okay. That we were happy despite everything. I uploaded the video with a simple caption, "My whole world. #blessed. Within minutes, a notification popped up. My cousin Derek had commented, "Playing at the park on a workday? No wonder you're always broke." Some people never learn responsibility. I deleted the comment, then deleted the post altogether. Then I deleted my accounts. I was done performing for people who only watched to criticize. When we got home, I cleaned out my purse, throwing away old receipts and gum wrappers. In the side pocket, my fingers touched something papery. The forgotten lottery ticket, crumpled but intact. I almost threw it away with the rest of the trash. But Lily had fallen asleep on my shoulder, and I needed something to do while I sat on the couch, unwilling to disturb her peaceful slumber. So I smoothed out the ticket and grabbed a penny from the jar on the coffee table. With nothing to lose and no expectations, I began to scratch. I scratched absent-mindedly at the lottery ticket, rubbing away the metallic coating while Lily slept against my shoulder. The TV played on mute, casting flickering blue light across our small living room. I wasn't even looking at the ticket at first, my mind still replaying the scene at the diner, the way my mother's eyes had slid past me as if I were a stranger. Then I glanced down. 3 golden crown symbols in a row. Next to them, a number that made my heart stop. $5 million. I blinked hard, certain I was hallucinating from exhaustion. The constant worry about money, the double shifts, the sleepless nights, they were finally making me lose my mind. But the symbols remained, gleaming under our cheap ceiling light. "No way," I whispered, causing Lily to stir slightly. I froze, waiting for her to settle back into sleep before carefully reaching for my phone. With trembling fingers, I pulled up the lottery website and entered the ticket information. A message appeared almost instantly. "Congratulations. You are a potential winner of a major prize. Please visit your nearest lottery claim center with your signed ticket and valid ID." The phone slipped from my hand onto the carpet. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. People who counted pennies for gas. People whose families threw them away. I must have sat there for an hour, Lily growing heavier in my arms, the lottery ticket clutched in my hand so tightly it left marks on my palm. I was afraid to move, as if any sudden motion might cause me to wake up from what had to be a dream. But it wasn't a dream. The ticket was real. The website confirmation was real. The weight of Lily against me, the reason I'd been ostracized, the best thing that had ever happened to me, was wonderfully, solidly real. My mind began racing with possibilities. No more choosing between electricity and food. No more picking up extra shifts when Lily was sick. No more watching her wear secondhand clothes while my sister's unborn baby already had a closet full of designer outfits. Then a darker thought crept in. How long until my family found out? How quickly would they come crawling back, suddenly remembering my existence? I couldn't deal with that tonight. Carefully, I stood and placed Lily in her crib, a yard sale find-I'd repainted myself. Then I secured the winning ticket in an envelope and hid it inside my copy of Pride and Prejudice, a book no one would think to look through. That night, I barely slept. For the first time in over a year, my insomnia wasn't caused by worry. It was pure, electric excitement. The next morning, I called in sick to both jobs. I dressed Lily in her best outfit, still worn at the knees but clean, and drove to the state lottery office, an hour away. The entire ride, I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see my parents' car following me, as if they could somehow sense what had happened. The lottery office was smaller than I'd imagined, just a plain building with fluorescent lighting and outdated furniture. A security guard directed us to a waiting area where two other people sat, both looking as stunned as I felt. "Ms. Carter?" A woman in a navy blue suit appeared, clipboard in hand. "We're ready for you." In a private room, they verified my ticket, checked my ID, and explained the process. I could take a lump sum payment, about $2.9 million after taxes, or annual payments. I chose the lump sum without hesitation. I'd been living day to day for too long. "We'll need to take a photo for the press release," the woman explained, gesturing to a backdrop with the lottery logo. "It's required by law, but you don't have to do interviews if you don't want to." I hesitated. "Will my name be public?" "Yes, that's also required. We can withhold your address, but your name and hometown will be published." My heart sank. There would be no hiding this from my family, but maybe I could buy myself some time. "Can I use my middle name?" "Legally, it's part of my name." She checked some paperwork. "Elizabeth, right?" "Mia Elizabeth Carter." "Yes, that's fine." Relief washed over me. I didn't have many friends who knew my middle name, and my family rarely used it. It might not hide me forever, but it would give me a head start. For the photo, I held Lily on my hip and smiled genuinely for the first time in months. The flash popped, capturing the moment my life changed forever. "Congratulations again, Miss Carter," the woman said, shaking my hand. "The funds should be transferred within 48 hours. We recommend speaking with a financial advisor as soon as possible." I nodded, still in a daze. "I will. Thank you." Outside in the parking lot, I strapped Lily into her car seat and sat behind the wheel, letting reality sink in. I was a millionaire. Me. The family disappointment. The cautionary tale. On the drive home, I stopped at a small diner, not the one where I worked, and ordered us a proper meal. Lily squealed with delight at the chocolate milkshake I let her dip her fries into, a special treat we'd never been able to afford before. As we ate, I made a mental list. Find a financial advisor, look for a new apartment, enroll in online classes to finish my degree. Simple, practical steps. I wasn't going to be reckless. This money was for Lily's future, for the stable life I wanted to give her. That evening, as promised, a small article appeared on the local news website. "Elizabeth Carter, single mother from Riverside, claims $5 million lottery prize." The photo showed me smiling widely, Lily's face partially hidden against my shoulder. I looked happy, strong, not at all like someone who'd been broken by rejection. I turned off my phone before checking any social media. I needed time to think, to plan, to prepare for the storm that would inevitably come when my family discovered the truth. What I didn't expect was how quickly that storm would arrive. My laptop pinged with an email notification just as I was putting Lily to bed. Then another, and another. By the time I returned to the living room, my inbox was overflowing with messages from the same relatives who had once called me trash. The first email was from my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. "Darling Mia, I just saw the most incredible news about someone who looks just like you winning the lottery. Is that really my favorite niece? Call me ASAP." Favorite niece. The same aunt who had refused to let me attend her son's wedding because it wouldn't look right. The same aunt who had told me I was making a mistake keeping Lily. The second message was from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months. "Hey girl, long time no chat. We should grab coffee and catch up." And on they went. Distant relatives I barely knew. Former friends who had disappeared when my pregnancy began to show. Even my sister Zoe had sent a text. "OMG sis, is that really you on the news?" Mom and Dad are freaking out. I closed my laptop without responding to any of them. Let them wonder. Let them sweat. For 3 days, I ignored the mounting messages while meeting with a financial advisor and a lawyer. I set up trusts, investment accounts, college funds for Lily. I found a modest but beautiful rental house in a good school district. Nothing flashy, just clean and safe. I wasn't ready to buy property yet. I needed time to adjust to this new reality. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole to see my mother standing there, clutching her purse with white knuckles. I hadn't seen her up close in over a year, not since that terrible family dinner where my father had told me not to come home until I'd fixed my situation. She looked older, more lines around her eyes. Her hair, once perfectly dyed and styled, showed gray roots. "I know you're in there, Mia," she called, knocking again. "Your car is outside." I took a deep breath and opened the door, keeping the security chain latched. "What do you want?" Her eyes widened at my cold tone. "Mia, sweetheart, it's been so long." She tried to peer past me into the apartment. Is the baby here?" "Her name is Lily," I said flatly. "And yes, she's napping." "Oh." My mother shifted uncomfortably. Can I see her?" "Why now?" I asked. "You've had 15 months to see her. You knew where we lived." She had the decency to look embarrassed. "I know things haven't been ideal between us, but I've been thinking about you so much lately." "Since yesterday?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Or since the lottery winner named Elizabeth Carter made the news?" "That's not fair," she protested weakly. "I've been having these dreams. Nightmares, really. That you and Lily were in trouble. I felt like it was a sign to reconnect." The lie was so transparent I almost laughed. Instead, I unlatched the chain and stepped onto the landing, pulling the door closed behind me. I didn't want her in my home, didn't want her near Lily. "Let's be clear," I said, crossing my arms. "You and Dad disowned me for keeping my baby. You've ignored my existence for over a year. You sat at my restaurant and pretended not to know me." I took a deep breath. "And now, coincidentally, right after a lottery winner with my middle name hits the local news, you're having prophetic dreams about me?" "It's not like that," she insisted, but wouldn't meet my eyes. "We've made mistakes, your father and I. We were disappointed, but we've missed you." "Miss me so much you couldn't send a Christmas card? Couldn't call on my birthday? Couldn't check if your granddaughter had enough to eat?" She flinched at that. "We thought you needed to learn." "To learn what? That my family's love was conditional?" Lesson received, loud and clear. I checked my watch. "I have to go. Lily will be waking up soon." "Wait." My mother reached into her purse and pulled out a small pink package. "I brought this. For Lily. It's nothing fancy, just a little dress I saw. For when she starts walking." "She's been walking for 3 months," I said, but took the package anyway. "Thanks." As I turned to go back inside, she touched my arm. "There's a family picnic next weekend. At the park. Everyone would love to see you both." I almost refused outright, but a thought occurred to me, a chance to face them all at once, to say what needed saying. "On my terms. Text me the details," I said finally. "I'll think about it." She beamed, clearly taking my response as a victory. "Wonderful. I'll let everyone know." I shut the door without another word, leaning against it as emotions churned inside me. Anger. Hurt. A small, weak part of me that still wanted my mother's approval despite everything. 2 days later, my cousin Derek showed up at the coffee shop where I still hadn't officially quit. I was turning in my apron when he sauntered in, designer sunglasses perched on his head just like that day at the gas station.
"Mia."
"What are the odds?" he exclaimed with fake surprise, as if he hadn't deliberately tracked me down. Pretty slim, considering you live across town, I replied, continuing to clean out my locker. He laughed too loudly. You always were the clever one. Listen, I've been meaning to talk to you. About that day at the gas station. He lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. You remember? When you bought that lottery ticket? So there it was. No pretense, just naked greed. Vaguely, I said, shutting my locker with a definitive click. Well, it's just, he fidgeted with his watch, an expensive model I knew he couldn't really afford. I feel like maybe I gave you the idea, you know? To try your luck that day. I stared at him, incredulous. You mocked me for spending money I didn't have. Did I? He waved dismissively. That doesn't sound like me. I've always been your biggest supporter, Mia. Always told the family they were too hard on you. The boldness of his lie left me momentarily speechless. Anyway, he continued, mistaking my silence for agreement, I'm having a little gathering this weekend. Nothing fancy, just drinks by the pool. You should swing by. Bring the kid. Her name is Lily. I said for what felt like the 100th time. And I can't. I have plans. Well, rain check then. Here's my card. New business venture. Very exciting. Looking for investors, actually. We should talk about it sometime. He thrust a business card into my hand and winked. Family discount, of course. As he strutted out, my manager approached. Friend of yours? No, I said firmly, dropping Derek's card into the trash. Not even close. That night, I laid out an outfit for the family picnic, simple but elegant jeans and a blouse that cost more than I used to make in a week. I also prepared an envelope containing copies of my bank statements, the deed to the new rental I'd secured, and a single photograph of Lily on her first birthday, a celebration none of them had attended. Suddenly, I was missed. Suddenly, I was still family. But I remembered everything, and I intended to make sure they never forgot it again. The city park was crowded that Saturday afternoon, but I spotted my family immediately. They had claimed their usual spot under the cluster of oak trees, with the long picnic tables my uncles always roped off early in the morning. Red and white checkered tablecloths fluttered in the gentle breeze, and the smell of my father's famous barbecue filled the air. For a moment, nostalgia hit me like a physical blow. How many summers had I spent here, running barefoot through the grass, competing in three-legged races with my cousins, stealing cookies from the dessert table before dinner. Ready, sweetie? I asked Lily, who was perched on my hip in a simple but beautiful sundress. She babbled happily, oblivious to the significance of the moment. I had dressed carefully, expensive but understated jeans, a silk blouse, and subtle diamond stud earrings that were my first splurge after the lottery win. My hair was professionally styled, my makeup perfect. I looked successful, confident, like someone who didn't need anyone's approval. Inside, though, my heart hammered against my ribs. Mia, you came. My mother spotted us first, rushing over with arms outstretched. She looked different today, hair freshly colored, makeup carefully applied, wearing a new outfit I'd never seen before. The performance had begun. Everyone, look who's here, she called, drawing all eyes to us. And this must be Lily. Oh, she's beautiful. One by one, they approached, aunts, uncles, cousins, each with exclamations of delight, as if my existence hadn't been deliberately erased from family photos for over a year. Some cooed at Lily. Others asked carefully crafted questions about my new situation. None mentioned the lottery directly, though I caught several of them eyeing my earrings, my designer handbag. My father was the last to approach, hanging back until my mother practically dragged him over. Hi, Dad, I said, meeting his eyes steadily. He nodded stiffly.
Mia.
His gaze dropped to Lily, then quickly away. You're looking well. Prosperity agrees with me, I replied, watching him flinch slightly at the implied confirmation. Come eat, my mother interrupted, steering us toward the food. Your father made his special ribs. Remember how you always loved those? I did remember. I also remembered him telling me I wasn't welcome at this very barbecue last year. For the next hour, I played along. I made small talk. I accepted compliments on Lily's behavior, her intelligence, her looks. I deflected questions about my job situation and living arrangements. I smiled and nodded as relatives who hadn't spoken to me in months claimed they'd been meaning to call. Then my cousin Derek arrived, immediately becoming the center of attention as he announced his engagement to a woman who clung to his arm like a designer accessory. "We're thinking a destination wedding," he boasted loudly. "Maybe the Maldives. A small, exclusive." His fiancée giggled. "Derek says only family who really matter get to come." "Speaking of family," Derek said, spotting me, "there's my favorite cousin, the one who's been so lucky lately." The picnic fell silent, all pretense momentarily abandoned as everyone turned to stare at me. "Luck has nothing to do with it," I said calmly, rising from my seat. Lily had fallen asleep in the portable playpen I'd brought, giving me the freedom to move. "I've been meaning to thank you all for coming today. It's been illuminating." "Oh, we're just so happy to have you back, darling," my Aunt Patricia gushed. "The family hasn't been the same without you." I smiled. "That's actually what I wanted to talk about. This idea that I'm back. As if I went somewhere by choice." My mother's eyes widened in warning. "Mia, maybe this isn't the time." "When would be the time, Mom?" "When you need money for Zoe's baby shower. When Dad's business needs an investor. When Derek's Maldives wedding exceeds his credit limit." "Now wait just a minute," my father began, his face reddening. I held up my hand. "No. You've all had your say for the past year and a half. Now it's my turn." I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope I'd prepared. From it, I extracted a stack of photos: Lily's first smile, her first steps, her first birthday with a single cupcake and no family present. "These are the moments you missed," I said, laying them on the table one by one. "Not because you couldn't be there, because you chose not to be." Next came the bank statements showing my old balances, the past due notices, the food pantry referral. "This is what it looked like when I was struggling to feed your granddaughter, your niece, your cousin," I continued, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. "When I was working 2 jobs and still coming up short. When I got sick and couldn't afford medicine but still had to show up for my shift because missing one day meant not making rent." My mother was crying now, silent tears tracking through her makeup. My father stared stonily at the ground. "And this," I said, placing the deed to my new rental home on top of the pile, "is what it looks like when I survive without you. When I build a life you're not part of." Derek laughed nervously. "Come on, Mia. We all make mistakes. That's what family's for, forgiveness, right? Water under the bridge." I turned to him slowly. "You know what's interesting, Derek? When I was at my lowest, when I had literally $10 to my name and spent 3 of them on that lottery ticket, you called me pathetic. Said I'd never learn. But now you want to pretend you've always believed in me?" His fiancée looked at him sharply. "You said your cousin was living off welfare by choice. That she refused your family's help." He lied, I said quietly. "They all did. They cut me off completely. And now they want back in." I stood in the middle of the backyard, smiled at them all, and dropped the final bomb. "I've set up a charitable foundation for single parents in crisis. The kind of crisis I was in when you all turned your backs. It will help with emergency housing, childcare, education. Things that would have changed my life when I needed them most." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Not one of you will ever see a penny of my money. This is what winning without you looks like." The silence was deafening. Then my grandmother, the only one who hadn't approached me yet, stood up slowly from her seat at the far end of the table. She walked over with her cane, her steps measured but determined. "You're right," she said, her voice cracking with age but firm with conviction. "We failed you, child." "I failed you." And to everyone's shock, she knelt slowly and painfully in front of Lily's playpen. "I'd like to know my great-granddaughter. Not because of what you have now, but because of who you've become despite us." It was the one thing I hadn't prepared for, genuine remorse. 3 months after the family picnic, I stood in the sunlit kitchen of my new home. Not the rental, but a house I'd purchased outright. For bedrooms, a spacious yard with a playset for Lily, and a home office where I was finishing my business degree online. The kitchen island was covered with paperwork for my foundation, New Beginnings, which would officially launch next month. I sipped my coffee, watching Lily chase butterflies through the window. At almost 2 years old, she was a bundle of energy and curiosity, secure in the knowledge that she was fiercely loved. My phone buzzed with a text from my grandmother. "Still on for lunch tomorrow?" I smiled and texted back. "Yes, 12:30. Lily's excited to see you." Of all the surprising outcomes from the picnic confrontation, my relationship with Gran was the most unexpected. Her genuine remorse had cracked open a door I'd thought permanently sealed. We started with short visits, just her, me, and Lily gradually rebuilding trust. She never asked for money, never made excuses for the others, never pushed me to forgive before I was ready. The rest of the family was a different story. My mother called daily for weeks until I blocked her number. My father sent a stiff letter of apology that read more like a business transaction than genuine regret. Derek tried to pitch me investment opportunities 3 more times before I threatened a restraining order. My sister Zoe was the only one who surprised me. A week after her baby was born, she showed up at my door alone, looking exhausted and vulnerable. "I don't want anything," she said immediately, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. I get it now. How scary it is. How alone you must have felt." She looked down at her sleeping newborn. "I have Jason and Mom and Dad, and still I'm terrified. You did this by yourself." It wasn't an apology, not exactly. But it was an acknowledgement, which was more than anyone else had offered. "Would you like to come in?" I asked after a long moment. "Just for a little while." We didn't become close overnight, but we established a cautious relationship. Lily and her cousin had playdates once a month. It was a start. For everyone else, I maintained firm boundaries. I forgave them, not for their sake, but for mine. Carrying anger would only weigh me down. But forgiveness didn't mean access. It didn't mean trust. It certainly didn't mean financial support. When my Aunt Patricia's son got engaged, she sent an invitation with a handwritten note. "We'd love you to sponsor the rehearsal dinner." Family helping family. I mailed back a modest gift card with a note of my own. "Congratulations. This is what family support looks like from me." When my father's business began struggling, he finally swallowed his pride enough to request a meeting. "Just to discuss options," he said awkwardly when I agreed to coffee. In a public place, without Lily. He spent the first 15 minutes with stilted small talk before finally getting to the point. "The economy's been tough. Banks aren't lending like they used to." He slid a business proposal across the table. "I thought, since you're looking for investment opportunities." I left it untouched. "I've already invested my money, Dad, in women who remind me of who I was before you all turned your backs." His face hardened. "You're never going to let that go, are you? We made a mistake. We've apologized. What more do you want?" "Nothing," I said simply. "That's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore." The truth was, my life had expanded beyond the narrow confines of their expectations. I'd found purpose in my foundation work, helping single parents navigate the system I'd struggled through alone. I'd made genuine friends, other students in my online program, fellow volunteers at the women's shelter, neighbors who didn't care about my bank balance. And I'd even started dating again, cautiously, thoughtfully. A kind widower with a daughter Lily's age who understood loss and rebuilding, who saw my strength rather than my circumstances. When the local newspaper ran a feature on New Beginnings, they took my photo in front of our first transitional housing unit, a renovated apartment building that would offer subsidized rent to parents in school or job training. The reporter asked if my own experience had inspired the foundation. "Hardship either breaks you or reveals you," I told her. "I learned who I was in the dark. Now, I want to be a light for others finding their way." The article appeared on a Sunday. By Monday, my inbox was flooded with congratulatory messages from family members I barely spoke to, each one claiming how proud they were, how they'd always believed in me. I deleted them all without responding. That evening, I took Lily for ice cream to celebrate her first successful day of preschool. As we sat on a bench in the park, happily creating a magnificent mess, I spotted Derek and his new wife across the playground. They saw us too. I noticed the moment of recognition, the way Derek straightened his designer jacket and began steering his wife in our direction. But then he hesitated, uncertainty crossing his face. I didn't wave or call out. I simply turned my attention back to Lily, to her chocolate-smeared smile and delighted giggles. After a moment, they walked away. That night, tucking Lily into bed, she asked for a story. "The princess one," she requested sleepily. I smiled. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lost her castle. I began our favorite bedtime tale. But she discovered she didn't need a castle to be a queen. She built her own kingdom, brick by brick, with love and determination. And they lived happily ever after, Lily mumbled, her eyes drifting closed. Yes, they did, I whispered, kissing her forehead, because they found out what really matters. As I turned out the light, I thought about the winding path that had led me here. The hurt and rejection, the struggle and triumph, the family I'd lost and the new connections I'd formed. They mocked me when I had nothing. Now they envied me from behind the gates they built themselves. But I'd done more than just get rich. I discovered my worth. And that was something money could never buy.